I will definitely be speaking further about Grey's Anatomy, but I was reading. It started tonight by reading about Shonda Rhimes. I've never read about. Oh my God, I'm flipping out right now. And so for the past 2 hours, I've been reading just all the behind the scenes information about starting with Shonda Rhimes and then just moving through the entire cast. And you know how I am with everything having meaning. And among other things, I'll just share a couple. So one of my oldest and dearest friends, somebody I have identified as my best friend for most of my life, shares a birthday with Shonda Rhimes and Patrick Dempsey. Patrick Dempsey is one of a very few pictures of Hollywood men on my first vision board that I referenced in the podcast that I recorded just before this one about 3 hours ago. What's tripping me out right now is that the girl, Ava, from the end of season 3, and I'm pretty sure she reappears if I remember in season 4, she was born in Bloomfield, Michigan. She's almost exactly 6 months older than me. Her birthday was June 15th. She started going to school at Oakland University, which of course I know. My dad taught a class there, for God's sake. And she just decided to apply to Juilliard and got in. And her stepfather was Bill Davidson, the owner of the Pistons, when he died. And when he died, her mother took ownership of the team, the Pistons. And that made me think of my contact with, well, first of all, the fact that my dad's brother worked for the Pistons on 2 different occasions, which is why my numbers are 4 and 10. Going back, first of all, soccer, my number was 10 first, my first primary number in my life, because soccer was even though baseball is my most natural sport, I just love soccer, and I was number 10 because of Pele. And then I played in 6th grade one-on-one with Joe Dumars and Isaiah Thomas. Why and how did I get that opportunity? Because my Uncle Joe worked for the freaking Pistons, and if there was anything that was a dream, that and meeting the Tigers would have been like the 1984 Tigers. I mean, in a podcast talking about the top 5 memories of my dad, I listed the exact team, starting lineup, and all the details from that 1984 team. Short of that, meeting the 1989 Pistons, oh my God, I met Chuck Daly, I met Rick Mahorn, Adrian Dantley was at the free throw line during the practice that I got to watch the end of before getting to play with Isaiah, and Isaiah was cool, but he went off, and Joe Dumars came out, and Dumars, I had my fake red Converse on, and I played with Dumars, and he hung out and played for 10 or 15 minutes. It was amazing. It was amazing. And to this day, my main number has been number 4, because that man was, and he's a good friend. My uncle is good friends with him. Well, Chucky Atkins, the guy I played with, he played at USF when I played at USF, and Chucky Atkins spent 2 different stints, at least maybe 3, with the Pistons. And I saw Chucky Atkins for the very first time since we went to college in 1995 together on the weekend of November 9th this past year at a USF basketball reunion. I hadn't seen Chucky, and you don't know the times I was in Detroit that I wanted to go see Chucky play, but my uncle wasn't working for him. I didn't think Chucky would even remember me. Chucky and I had been Facebook friends for 2 weeks before this reunion, and when I went up to him, he just said to me completely out of the blue, I know somebody when you're ready for your first book. I hadn't even started my website. I hadn't even started the blog yet. The blog it was sort of in my head. I know I hadn't even started attempting to write the first blog yet, because this was early November. I was just getting settled into Sarasota because I had only left St. Pete 3 weeks prior. Oh my God. I mean, there is an intense, real connection to the Detroit Pistons. So to read through, and I'm just sharing, this is just the last of all these other little signs that I've picked up through all the different cast members. Things based on, how about Kate Walsh? She studied at the Piven Theater in Chicago. Well, the Piven Theater, that's where John Cusack and one of my secret Hollywood boyfriend, George Clooney and John Cusack. George Clooney, John Cusack, Kevin Spacey are like, I freaking love those guys. I love George Clooney, John Cusack, and Kevin Spacey. And John Cusack is best friends with Jeremy Piven, and oh my God, I can't, and I just learned, well, this isn't tied to Grey's Anatomy, but I'm also still tripping out because I just learned that one of my cousin's kids, his birthday is July 11th, and I think, well, I know two people whose birthdays on July 11th, and one of them, I'm just, wow. And the girl Ava, and I'm in, wow. And I know it's a stretch, right? But this whole first episode of season 4, I can't even believe the number of things. Like how that's what made me look up Shonda Rhimes. And then to learn that how about this? She was at Dartmouth when Andrew Shue was at Dartmouth. Andrew Shue graduated 2 years before Shonda Rhimes. I guarantee they know each other. Why? Because those are small schools. How do I know that? Because my first job out of college at PricewaterhouseCoopers, that was their main recruiting was Brown, Dartmouth, William and Mary, all these super private Ivy League schools. I was one of like 2 people out of the 80 in my class that was hired out of a public institution. It was just, and Andrew Shue, of course, I met in Australia. I actually ditched Andrew Shue for a drink. I ditched Andrew Shue. I'm such a moron, and that's I gotta save that for a separate story. But when I saw Shonda Rhimes went to Dartmouth, that made me go to Andrew Shue, who I haven't looked up in quite a while. Oh my God. And they were at Dartmouth at the same time. And Shonda Rhimes decided she was going to apply to film school at USC because she heard it was more difficult to get in there than it was to get into Harvard's law school. So just for the challenge, she decided she would go for the greater challenge. And boy, does that sound familiar. And the reason why I also looked up Shonda Rhimes because I thought she was a black woman, but I was not sure. And it was a line that Meredith said about Bailey. And she just said, on a spiritual level, Bailey is superior to everybody or above everybody. It was, right after Callie gets selected as chief resident and Justin Chambers, Alex goes, has no respect for Callie and says he's going to go over Callie's head to Bailey. And Christina says Callie is over Bailey's head, and Meredith says on a spiritual level Bailey is above everybody, and it was sort of slid in, like it was really easy to miss. In fact, I had to rewind it to see if I heard what I heard, and when I heard that line, that is what made me think. And I remember seeing for this episode, because not all of them have been written by Shonda Rhimes, this one was written by Shonda Rhimes, and I thought, I wonder if Bailey's character is, it just made me think, I'm sure Bailey's character is in part a lot of Shonda Rhimes herself. And so then when I started reading about her, beginning with the fact that her birthday is the exact same as my childhood best friend, and then Patrick Dempsey's, oh my goodness, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I did not know he was born in Seattle. Just tons and tons of little signs that aren't little signs. And I'm just, again, it doesn't matter what makes you super happy in the present moment. And right now, if this is, the sort of happiness I bask in because I'm in an isolation period, man, I'll take it. I'll take it because, wow, like I just have a whole new level of appreciation. And, we might watch these shows and we may be fans, but we really, if you don't take the time, you're just missing out. Like it's so much richer when you know the behind the scenes. And so I'm going to have to cut this because I could go off. These tangents could go on interminably. Oh my God.